You ready to roll? Ready? Yep. All right, I'd like to call to order this Monday, November 15, 2021, regular meeting of the Canal Winchester Local School District Board of Education. Mr. Roberts, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Butler?
Here.
Mr. Donahue? Here. Krueger? Present. Mr. Metzler? Here. Ms. Talley?
Here.
All right, will we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to number 4, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening?
No, there are not.
Okay, wonderful. And then moving on to number 5, I just need an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Krueger? Yes. Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue? Yes. Mr. Metzler? Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. We're going to move on to presentations. So our first presentation this evening is going to be from Winchester Trails Elementary, and we have Principal Max Lullifin here this evening.
All right, good evening, everyone. We have a video that we'd like to show you tonight. This video comes as a part of our Leader in Me that we're doing. It's a program that not only focuses on the social and emotional part of our learners, but also a great capacity of leadership. We put out a Google form and asked some of our staff what are some great things that are happening in our building, and we had the opportunity to put this together, and we shared it at our professional development on November 2nd, and we really thought it was extremely impactful for our staff, and we wanted to take the opportunity to show it to you this evening as well.
Hi, I'm Ms. Qualls, and my inspirational story is about a kiddo who transferred here during the height of the pandemic last year. It was a crazy year, but he was coming from a neighboring school district, and he had never logged in at all at his previous school, except to say, hey guys, I'm leaving. So that was very interesting to know that he pretty much lost a whole year of learning before he got here. And it just so happened that we were also virtual at the time that he started here, and it was just a struggle. So he was constantly crying, trying to get himself out of reading, which made me realize that he really struggled and had to learn helplessness when it came to reading. And once I got him in here, I really learned that he was severely low coming in as a 3rd grader. We were still working on letter sounds, letter recognition, just trying to learn to love reading again. And now this kid's in 4th grade and he is blooming. He is such a bright spot. He still has a ton to learn, but he is not shy to raise his hand or participate, and he absolutely loves school. Mr. Lemieux, we tag teamed with him, and we were going back and forth. He started with an hour with me and then went with Mr. Lemieux, and kind of vice versa. And now this kid has so many resources in our building and so many people who look up to him, which is a pretty great thing, especially when he started where he did to where he is now. So he's my inspiration to come to work every day and keep going and really love what I get to do. So, yeah.
I'm Alex from Mrs. Ford's class. She taught me all these things like vowels and other stuff that inspired me to keep learning more. I had this feeling in my body I could do it if I keep practicing this more, if I keep doing it. I get to see friends, keep learning, doing activities, seeing people having fun, and all that.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Smith. One of the things that I do this year is I use my
my guided notes that I created last year during hybrid learning and remote learning for my students, which has the in-class notes in it, and it also has guided videos of breaking down all of our strategies. One of the things that I do is I post those every week for the students, and we talk about if they're stuck at home on their homework, they can go to these guided notes if they don't have their notebook, and they can watch the videos that are linked in these notes. I had a student come up during one of our division weeks and talk about how he was struggling at home with his homework. And he actually, with his mom, sat down and watched these division strategies that we had done in class. And he was able to go step by step through the video and on his homework with his mom. And they were able to complete his division homework, and he was able to master that skill in division when he took that quiz later that week. So he was proactive with his learning, and he took that initiative to go onto his guided notes and figure out what did he need to do step by step, and he used those guided notes to help him and was very proactive with his learning. Nice job, Saul.
I'm sorry, I'm in Miss Smith's 5th grade class. She posted these notes on Google Classroom for division, and I didn't really get it at first. And I looked at the notes on Google Classroom, and me and my mom looked through my homework and did the questions, and I got an A on it. I've been getting good grades, and I've been able to help other students have good grades in their stuff too. And I appreciate Miss Smith helping me learn new strategies.
So I have a student this year, Chimera Perry, who when he came in at the beginning of the year and we started writing paragraphs, he really struggled with getting anything written down on paper. And then with speaking with him, I began to understand that he could tell me verbally what he wanted to write, but he couldn't get it down on paper or typed on the Chromebook. So then I started scribing for him, and I would write one sentence at a time on the piece of paper, and then he would write it himself on his paper or in the Chromebook in his Google Doc. So we realized, thinking with the end in mind, how are we going to best meet his goal? And that was by continuing to do that. And as we've done that, he even last week wrote a complete paragraph on his own.
Hi, my name is Chimera Perry. I'm in Miss Pope's 3rd grade class. At first, when I was on my Chromebook typing in a sentence, you would spell it out letter by letter, and I would just put the letter in. Now, when I'm writing on paper, she would write it on a sticky note, and I would copy it down on my paper. That's how I got increased to write more often.
How are you doing now?
Very well.
Haven't sit with you as much?
No, not really.
Awesome.
So like anything else, this isn't really a before and after story. It's a work in progress with me, Dana Stubbs, the student, and the student's family. But pretty early in the school year, one of our kiddos made a mistake. And when we were talking to him about this mistake, he said, well, I'm just a bad kid. This isn't surprising. I do stuff like this all the time. It's just kind of how I am. And that made Dana and I really sad to hear that that was the lens that he viewed himself in. We want him to see himself as a leader, as somebody who can be successful at school. So of course we told him, oh no, that's not who you are. We don't know any bad kids. We know smart kids and funny kids and helpful kids. And you can be all of those things and still make a mistake. That doesn't define you. And of course he kind of shrugged us off. But a couple days later, I knew that I was going to be out. And so I called him up to my desk and said, hey, being proactive, thinking ahead, I'm going to be absent and I know the substitute is going to need a helper. Would you be willing to be that helper? And he said, okay, yeah, sure. Seemed kind of into it, but didn't give us much to go on. And then, the couple weeks after that, we were in the same cycle. He made a mistake. He would say, oh, I'm just bad. And we'd say, no, that's not who you are. You're so much more than that. But we weren't sure how much all of that was sinking in until I had to be absent again. And this time he came up to me unprompted and he said, hey, thinking ahead, can I be the helper for the substitute? I said, absolutely. I was able to point to where I'd already written his name on the sub plan. And it was so exciting for us that he was already thinking ahead to how he was going to be for the sub. And not only was he thinking ahead, but he was thinking, how can I be helpful for the sub? I want to be in a leadership role. I want to be taking initiative in that way. So it's just really exciting to see him leaning into being proactive instead of leaning into what he used to believe about himself.
My name is Tyler and I'm in the school board third grade class. When she's out and when we have sub, I help the sub know what social studies, and I help her what we do with missing work, not have enough time to write down what we always have to do.
Does it help you be successful on your chart?
Yes.
Yeah. How about your behaviors? How does that help if you're going to be a helper?
Happy,
Happy?
fun.
Does it make you feel good? Does it make you stay on task?
Mm-hmm.
The Leader in Me program, it focuses on the 7 habits from Dr. Stephen Covey's work. And just hearing some of that language, being proactive, thinking with the end in mind, those are things that we not only are trying to live by every single day, we're trying to empower our students. And ultimately, they will be able to be portraits of a graduate. I know Mrs. Warren talks about painting your portrait. Right now, we're probably in the watercolor stage as we just are implementing and moving forward with this. But we are seeing traction with this. We're seeing a lot of growth in our students and a lot of success, and we're super thankful that we have the ability to utilize this program. And we just want to take a few minutes to share with you some of the great things that are happening at Winchester Trail. Does anybody have any questions?
I just love it.
Yeah, your girls are getting to partake in it every single day. Our morning meetings are very influential. We use that language in our morning meetings when we talk about things. And that's just one example, but it's something that we utilize every day throughout our daily walk. And it's grown into just being proactive. Every classroom is focusing on trying to get the dustpan award. We have a golden dustpan for every hallway. Mr. Sotler the other day saw we're doing a golden plate for every lunch group. Every month, the best group in lunch, they get a golden plate that they get to keep and put in their window and get to brag about having it all month. So we're just doing little things that are super inexpensive, but super empowering for our students to just visually help, give them the stamina, but also fill some of those gaps that they have that they've missed out on school for the last 20 months or so. But we're super honored to have this opportunity, so thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Alton. Okay. Our next presentation this evening is from the CWEA.
Hi, I'm Marty Lair. I'm a first grade teacher at Indian Trail. It was kind of neat to see one of my former students up there on the video. Makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. At Indian Trail, second grade students wrote about monsters and used all kinds of adjectives to describe them. Many teachers, me included, are beginning a new math pilot program, and the students are very, very excited to have the new materials and new curriculum. Mrs. Hazelbaker's class will be doing an experiment on a pumpkin in a jar, watching it decompose. I wonder what it looks like now. All that nasty goodness, she describes it. So she is hoping to get her class also out to our garden to weed the remaining flowers as winter is coming. Indian Trail had a reverse Veterans Day parade. The kids lined the sidewalk and waved to the veterans, and they made posters and signs thanking our veterans. It was very, very cool. Brought a tear to the eye, I must admit. First graders will be learning about the history of Thanksgiving through books, crafts, and videos. At Winchester Trail in Ms. Thompson's science classes, students have been busy experimenting with gizmos, which are virtual experiments, and using FOSS kits to create catapults to learn the relationship between force and motion. Our fifth graders were able to create catapults and talk about potential and kinetic energy and design time, and they started learning about sound and pitch and music, which is our next science unit, and it is really great how science can be so cross-curricular. The seventh grade ELA students have been researching numerous people who have suffered traumatic brain injuries and learning about the differences between each person. They're using Venn diagrams to compare and contrast responses, and then they're going to end the unit with a design challenge. The sixth grade students are focusing on community service. They try to support various needs throughout our community by fundraising and then using the money raised to help when needed. So this year, the schools are unable to collect grocery shopping cards for the annual Thanksgiving meal drive. So the sixth graders voted to donate some of their proceeds from their annual fall flower sale to the purchase of the gift cards. The students were given 4 amounts to choose from, and we're happy to report that they chose the highest amount of $1,200 to donate. That will provide 60 families with a grocery gift card to purchase the main course for their meal. The students were very proud of themselves for stepping up to help their community. And at the high school, the students celebrated Diwali and Dia de los Muertos at the high school last week. Spanish classes made the Dia de los Muertos display, and the Multicultural Club made tea lights for Diwali. In the English language learner class, they learned about the history of Halloween and had a little celebration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to Section C, which is our public voice. Do we have any public voice this evening?
We do not.
Okay. All right, no public voice. We're going to move on to our executive report. So first up is going to be our treasurer's report this evening.
Good evening. We're going to go over the forecast in this section. So as you know, we update the forecast in November and May every year. It's a monthly deal for myself, but for the board and approving with ODE, it's just in November and May. Most important thing at the end of the 5 years, cash balance. Right there, you can get into the details of cash balance right there. This is our renewal period for the emergency levy. They cannot be automatically assumed of passing, but it will be in there. So if we were to do away with the levy, which we would not, that would be the cash balance at that point there. Then moving forward, that would decrease very drastically. So we start with revenues. Revenues kind of drive the forecast, because if you have the revenue and the income, then you can dictate your expenditures. You can see that state funding in 2021 makes up a big portion of our revenue, and then the other is local. It's about a 50-50 split, state to local share. You can see we didn't have, we had a little bit of growth, 43 to 45, to 47, to 47, to 49, and then we're projecting 49, and then just slight increases to the revenue in the 5-year forecast period. So a big piece of our revenue is real estate taxes. I just want to point out we've had very mild growth. You can see that it's slight increase over the last 5 years, and we're still projecting that. That's a good sign for growth in the district. It just shows you that the district is still growing. I mean, you can see these are actual numbers right here, 3.2, 3, 1.14, 3, and then we're projected to have real estate growth this year of about 3.96%. So you can see our district does continue to grow. There is new construction every year. So we continue to bring in new houses, and as many of you know, with property tax bills, the valuations have increased tremendously. So as values increase, we do pick up a little bit of money from that. We don't pick up a tremendous value from the new increased values, but we do pick up some. as you can see. Public utility goes along with the real estate tax, it's just a different category. And then income tax. Income tax is one of our biggest growing revenue lines that we have. You can see it, it's about a moderate growth percentage-wise. 8%, 5%, almost 6%, and 6%. So we average about a 7% growth. We're projecting 7.55 this year, and we go forward at a 5% estimated growth. So income tax is a very moderate growth mechanism for the district and real estate tax. State revenue, the one thing I wanted to point out is we're not going to have a 9% decrease, but it's going to look that way with the change to the state funding model. Before, I'll get into it more with the expenditure side of it, but before they would fund us to our ADM, and then they would back out all of the charter school kids, community school kids, all the kids that were not attending and the money went elsewhere. Starting this year, we're only being funded for the kids we're educating. So you will see another big decrease in purchase service line when we get to expenditures.
So Nick, ADM is
Average daily membership. Yeah. So you'll see on a slide here to come the difference in the enrollment numbers. Here's what we're projecting. This is what the educated numbers were. We're projecting this year 38-31. You can see we had a pretty significant dip thanks to the pandemic and COVID, and kids leaving the district for various reasons. Another big change is the restricted. This goes along with the state budget. Prior to this budget, the only things that were in this line were career tech funding, and then disadvantaged economics. If you remember, our wellness funds were put into a different fund. We had to treat those separate. In this new formula, the wellness dollars are allowed to come to the general fund, but they go into the restricted line. We're also required to have a gifted line in restricted, so there's some new funding mechanisms that are driving into the restricted line item. You can see about a $1.1 million increase as part of the state formula.
Is that coming out of it somewhere else? So we're not actually seeing that complete value. It's just kind of a reshuffle of funding.
Really, most of it's a reshuffle. 607,000 of it was the wellness that would have been in a separate fund, but now it's just going to be put into the general fund and be restricted. Property tax allocation, that goes along with real estate and the first couple tabs. The only thing I'll say about other revenue is you'll see it's our most volatile. You can get close to predicting it, but it's a little bit more difficult to predict. You can see a 12% increase, 26. It was down almost 4%, back up 14. So it's a very volatile line with our interest income makes up a big piece of that. And there's just all other revenue. It could be donations, it could be our property taxes in lieu, all those type of things just vary. So we try to make it a streamlined, flat estimation and kind of meet it in the middle of our projections.
That 2022 number, I saw it looked like it dropped down a little bit. Was that just what you're seeing right now? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing right now based on, we eliminated fees. Our interest income is going to be down $400,000 to $600,000. I think we were pushing $1 million last year on interest income. And it's going to be, we'll be lucky to hit $400,000. So it's a pretty drastic decrease on that side of things.
So it's not,
the interest rates were almost 2%, and then they slashed them to 0. So that's a pretty big loss on your revenue.
but that's what I was going to ask. So it's not really necessarily we're losing, we're just not picking up the same like interest, same rate we had been before the pandemic happened, and the stock market was really, we were picking up a lot of investment money.
Yeah, so that could, I mean, it could sway 1 to 2% is probably the variance on other revenue.
Okay.
This is debt we transfer for the House Bill 264 and the bus bond. Total expenditures, obviously there's always a slight increase in the expenditures, just the cost of doing business. The thing to point out here is salaries and benefits make up 74% of our expenditures. So purchase services, supplies, and other are a very small portion of the district's expenditures. You can see we were down overall 13, and we average 5, 6. We're about 3 to 4% on increases, and you can see that's what we've got projected out into the future. Salaries that make up 53% of it. You can see slight increase over the period. These years here already, we have a collective bargaining agreement in place. Salary schedules approved. The only thing it really assumes is new staff. We try to allocate a certain amount of dollars to the new staff each year, and if we use it, we use it if there's a need. Then if not, it just lowers it, the projections. Employee benefits makes up obviously another big chunk of our expenditures. As salaries increase, we have salary percentage expenditures tied to that. Workers' comp, retirement, and Medicare are all percentage of payroll. So as payroll increases, those things automatically increase by a certain percent. And then the other big chunk of that is health insurance. We were average increase of about 9% this year. We have had a trend of about 3%, so we've done a nice job of controlling that expense. As you can pretty well see, up 200,000, up 400,000, 500,000, 500,000, and then we're projecting another 400,000. So even with the additional salaries that we've added, we've done a fairly decent job of controlling the other expenditures that are tied to benefits. Purchase services, as I stated before, you're going to see a pretty drastic drop from 21 to 22 because we eliminated about $1.3 million in expenses that were associated with the revenue from the state side of things when they deducted for charter school kids, community school kids, tuition kids, open enrollment, those type of things. So you can see that the difference in between what an ADM in the district was and what an educated enrollment means to the district. So this is what we were showing last year as our total ADM, but this is the number of kids that we were actually educating in our buildings.
So that's 240 kids either are at a different, like a private school or the
Charter school,
charter school, homeschool. Does that take in say a student's here for a class and then goes to college courses? That's still
No,
that's part
they
of
would be in this number because they count as educated. Yep. This is strictly kids leaving the district that we do not educate. And the 36 does count any kid that's getting private tuition, private schooled with like a Hogland Learning Center or the Learning Spectrum. So they count in the 36 because we're technically educating them.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a pretty drastic loss of students. And I think the census even shows more than that. I think our census, the last census, we were over 4,000 students that were school age that could attend this school because we don't have access to some of the private school kids. They've always went to a private school like a Watterson or a Hartley or a Reedy or some of those. And we don't have we've never had record of them. So there's probably another 150, 200 kids that are unaccounted for in that 240. So we probably have 400 plus that live in the district that don't attend for whatever reason.
And to further explain that, so we were gaining revenue from the state for the ADM students.
The ADM kids.
Now we are only gaining revenue from the state if they're in a seat,
Yep.
basically.
Yep, if we're educating them. And we only receive 20%. So if I think we had 150 some kids at Career Tech. we receive 20% of the funding for those kids.
Why do we only get a portion of the percentage for that one? Just out of curiosity.
That's what the formula, that's what they came up with, so.
But, so those other kids that drop off the ADM, that would be any of those kids, so essentially you won't be the money won't be passing through anymore for you.
Correct.
It'll go directly to wherever those
Yeah.
kids are. And those aren't kids like, if they're at Harvest Prep, but if they're not a Canal Winchester student, that doesn't count. But the kids who physically live in the district, that money has to go through you, or before it had to go through you, before it went to them.
Correct.
Okay.
So, supplies is, I mean, it's pretty much really the only expenditure in the district that we have complete control over to a certain degree. This from here to here and from here to here, it's a COVID impact. I mean, we were hybrid last year, mostly online, so expenditures were drastically down, and now we're back up, which is really not up 13%. It's really just probably 3%. We were just down so much last year due to COVID. You can see we spent 1.9 million, 1.8, and then we dropped back to 1.7, which was 2018 levels. And then we'll be back up to more closer to the 1.9 of getting the curriculum and textbooks adoptions and things like that we need. A big piece of that being down was bus fuel. Bus fuel's in that line item. And when we were hybrid, we saved probably about $125,000-150,000 last year on bus fuel by not having to transport as much. Capital outlay, we've moved everything to a capital permanent improvement fund. This again is debt. Other objects, this is mostly our real estate tax fees and our income tax fees for the county auditor and the state Department of Taxation collecting. It's a majority of it. And then we have some audit fees, ESC contract deductions. This is our capital improvement. You can see this was our high school project, 7.9 million in 17. And then we started setting money aside for long-term and short-term capital improvements. That's why that capital, we used to spend money out of the general fund. We stopped doing that back then, and we started transferring it to use it all out of the permanent improvement fund. We've been doing almost 3 million, 5's in the forecast. I know the board is interested in some different projects, whether that be Performing Arts Center or Mr. Sotler and I talked at possibly a preschool center or something like that, so we could open up space to have full day kindergarten. There's just initial thoughts, but the board essentially showed interest in some sort of project along those lines. So I wanted to make sure we allocated some money and set that aside to be able to maybe do a facility project. I know we would like to spend all of our money on salaries and benefits, but sometimes it's not feasible. So sometimes we have to put that money back into taking care of property and growing along with the district. So setting that money aside at least gives us some options moving forward. And then here's a summary of the forecast revenue lines total. You can see what it's projecting. These are lower because you'll see these numbers are do not have the emergency renewal in it. They'll be down at the bottom. Expenditures. You can see the total increasing every year. But the big thing is there's the cash balance projections for the 5-year period. Any questions on the forecast? Be interested to get the state numbers. No one has actually seen them yet, so I would love to verify those numbers.
And when are they going to give you the official, that number from the state? Is that going to be January, or we're going to wait till the fall? Like
It's supposed to be December.
December. Okay.
Supposed to be December when they have it launched and ready. Okay, so let's see.
Nick, I do have a question. In your forecast, it's mentioned that the real estate property tax revenue accounts for 31.52% of the total revenue. With the new school funding formula, will you see that change? Is that going to be different?
Yeah, the percentage could possibly go down a little bit if the state budget was fully funded. Right now, the budget is saying, they came up with a formula, and they're gonna give us 16% of the formula in year 1, and then 33% in year 2. Year 3 and 4 and 5, they would not put that into the budget. So they essentially said, we're not gonna guarantee this moving in year 3, 4, and 5. So the state budget is interesting, to say the least, if it's gonna be guaranteed moving forward. But if it is, then yes, our local share could decrease quite a bit.
Yeah, because I also was reading about it, and it was saying that more than 80% of Ohio's 600 plus school districts would receive between $7,000 and $8,000 in per pupil base funding, but it looks like that's a big gap with in reference to what our district would be receiving, like it would be decreased.
I can show you in a different slide after, not tonight, but every district is computed as a base cost. So it used to be across the state, they used to use averages, but now every single district is they compute a base cost, and they compute your local effort. And then the difference is what they give you per pupil. And I think ours is right around $3,800 is the per pupil amount. So as our educated kids increase, then we would obviously pick up more funds on top of that. So every district's base cost and every district's local share index is different. So literally all 610 districts have a different per pupil amount now, where it used to be across the board the same for every district. That's why it's taking them so long to calculate and actually disperse the new formula to all the districts, because they're having to basically do a calculation for each individual district.
Okay, and that's reflected in the number of students that we'll see a decrease in, because they're taking out the students that are attending the charter schools and all the Okay. So
It was a pretty, I mean, it's one of the it was one of the biggest overhauls in state funding. I mean, but it was led by treasurers and superintendents and other educators that knew what funding should look like. I mean, for example, they hadn't looked at special education funding since the late 70s, early 80s. So that number had remained the same. As we all know, I mean, those costs have increased tremendously over the last 30 years. So they took a good hard look at those. They looked at what gifted truly costs. They looked at what transportation truly costs. So they looked at all the components in the formula and really broke it down and analyzed it based on what are things costing each district now.
Okay.
So it's a good formula. If they would fully fund it, it would be great for almost every district in the state.
So explain that. So the formula works. You agree with the formula. Most of the treasurers, superintendents, everyone agrees with the way the formula is laid out. But they're not willing to fund the formula that they came up with.
Correct, because it's too costly. And they have other agendas that they would like to see implemented, like a backpack program and those type of things, as you've probably seen in the news.
Yeah, I think they said it's going to cost the state approximately $2 billion.
Our formula is saying we should receive about $24.5 million, but we're only receiving $17.5 million. So they took the difference and applied. So if the difference was $6 million, they're only willing to give you 16% of that difference in year 1 and 33% in year 2, with no guarantees moving forward.
But that formula is more of a true
Yes,
cost of doing business.
100% a
if
true
you will.
cost of doing business.
And they figured out the cost of doing business was more than they wanted to give.
In the initial House
Funding
bill,
it properly.
in the initial House bill, it was a 6-year phase-in plan. Senate refused to do a phase-in plan because they felt like the House approved it, what was it, 80-some to 20-some. The House approved it overwhelmingly. The Senate felt like they gave in to even allow the formula in, even though it was a 4-year working project. So they decided, okay, we'll give it to you for 2 years, but we are not going to do anything with a phase-in. So that same committee who came up with it started working on it the day after it was enacted into legislation. So they've already started. So hopefully they lay the groundwork. 4 years from now, they will implement the phase-in.
And the budget you're gonna be getting in well, hopefully in December and January, will this last a full 2 years, or will this just be like a 1 year kind of deal, like?
2 year. They do a biennium budget. So
Okay.
fiscal 22, which we're in, and fiscal 23 are in law.
Okay, so we'll be looking at another budget, I thought, for some reason, I thought the fiscal year was at the end of June, so we're looking at the end of next summer, maybe getting another formula coming at us, or will it last the entire 2 full calendar years, like 24 months from now, we'll be looking at this again?
Hopefully they just implement this formula. I mean, there's been thousands upon hours put into this in hearing meetings and all these things behind the scenes. I mean, Cupp and Patterson have been laying the groundwork for 4+ years now on the House side. We just got to get Senate to buy into it. But right now their leader is someone who believes in private education.
Okay.
So reach out to your Senate leaders and show them how important it is to fund public schools fully and completely. Because at the end of the day, guys, I mean, it takes from the local taxpayers. I mean, they came up with a base cost, so that's the cost of doing business. So if they don't fully fund that base cost, then the money has to come from somewhere, and if you're not getting it from the state, you're getting it from the local taxpayers. It's as simple as that. But I will say, it is a much better deal than we've had the last 2 years. I mean, we were looking at a flat funding. We were going to have no increase in these 2 years, so at least the formula got implemented and we are picking up additional revenue, so it could be worse. Just wish they would finally fully fund a formula. I mean, Governor Kasich's plan was a good formula, and they had a phase-in plan, but the phase-in plan never happened because he was out of office before the phase-in completed. And then the next governor quickly did away with the formula. So either we need consistency at the top with the governor to make sure this happens, or we need to get full buy-in from the Senate because they're ultimately the ones controlling it right now.
Okay. Awesome.
So, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberts. Okay, and then we're gonna move on to our superintendent's report this evening.
Well, thank you, Mr. Butler. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our viewers. Before I get started, I would like to introduce the 2 representatives from my Superintendent Student Advisory Group, Tristan Riemann and Wyatt Riemann, sitting in the back over there. Gentlemen, how are you? Thanks for coming tonight. Take good notes, and we'll discuss this at our next meeting, which I believe is a week from today, next Monday. So thank you for being here tonight, guys. Just wanted to give you an update on a few things. One, we'll start with some COVID numbers for November, the first 2 weeks in November. We've had 6 cases in the first 2 weeks. We had 5 the first week, and I believe we had 1 last week, student cases, new cases. So we are definitely trending in the right direction. We'll go through the last week of November because we have 2 days next week, and then we'll go through that very last week of November, which is, I think, 2 days in November, the 29th, 30th, and December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And then we'll take a look at that Friday for December to see what phase we'll be in, whether it's recommended. Right now, we're trending in the very good direction, and let's hope we keep going that way. Also, just wanted to give an update that we are partnering with the Nationwide Children's Hospital to host a COVID vaccine clinic at Winchester Trail on Saturday, November 20th. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's the first vaccine shot, and the second one will be on Saturday, December 11th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Now, this is only for kids between the ages of 5 and 11 only, okay? And you don't have to be a CW student. It's open for any students or kids between the ages of 5 and 11. The parents have to come. It is strictly volunteer. That's why it's outside the school day. We're just giving them the space to have it at Winchester Trail. So the first date, again, is November 20th, And the second date is December 11th. If you go on their website, Nationwide Children's Hospital website, there's a place, or if you go on our webpage, there is a place where you can click on the link and you could sign up right through there. So, you know, we're trying to do our best to help everyone out, but it is strictly volunteer. We're just providing a space for them for the 2 shots. Questions or comments on that as I move forward? Okay, just an update with the Canal Winchester Historical Society, which is currently located in the old Queen of the Line Railroad Station, the old Prentice School building, and the Cheney Grain Elevator, which is right here in town. Well, they're running out of space because they're getting so many artifacts from the old Canal Winchester, or from the historical Canal Winchester, and they're running out of space. And they have come to me, and this has been for several months now, talking about possibly using space that's above the Barber Museum and having a Canal Winchester Historical Museum there. We have the Barber Museum on the first floor, and on top they would like to use that, and so we could have 2 museums there. We did a lot of looking at what that old building is used for, and we have a lot of stuff in there that we need to purge. I mean, stuff that's been there for 20-some years already, old desks, tables, chairs, and everything else under the sun. So we have enough room to move things around and provide them a space. Mr. Donahue, I know as part of the Historical Society, you have anything that you would like to say? This is
The Historical Society would take care of funding for moving the material that's there, and that where we want to use some of the heavy objects and so forth, and would also renovate it, whereas there would be handicap accessibility to that floor. And the curator of the Barber Museum has been trying to get extra space, and I tell him, like I just said, you just said, you need to get rid of some of this stuff. Yeah. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to have a Canal Winchester Historical Museum that kids can come in and learn about Canal Winchester, what it was, you know, how this building down at the other end was built by the Miller brothers, how there used to be a building, 2 different buildings, one for girls, one for guys. A lot of things like that these kids don't get. And you're living here, and we just want to try to educate them the best we can on those things. And we're getting a lot of artifacts. Yeah.
Sounds like an easy field trip for classes.
Well, it is. With the Barber Museum down below, you could visit the Barber Museum, then you have the historical Canal Winchester Historical Society, and also we have our branch library right here. So, I mean, you know, this is to me, this is something good for our community, for all of us. We have the space, we have to get rid of stuff. Now, we do have some programs that are in those buildings, so we'll have to move some things around because I don't want to take it away from them, but there's plenty of room for all of us to share up there. So, and just so people realize, we cannot use that space for kids anymore. Once we enter the project, plus it would not, the cost to renovate those buildings would not be worth it either. So, when we did the OFCC project, they took our enrollment, not including this building anymore, and so that's where we got our funding from. So really, that could be used for storage or something outside. So
I like the project, and I think it's a good idea, especially with us being so close to downtown and this being a walkable area. I noticed there's been a lot of traffic over at that library, and I'm glad you mentioned that. So between the Barber Museum and I think adding something, I think working with the Historical Society, I think would be a win for the district, and it would be a win, obviously, for our community as a whole. So I would definitely be in favor of it, and I think that would be my only question. And it sounded like Steve actually kind of answered it, was just the renovation cost. That won't be on the district. That'll be through the Historical Society. They will pick up the cost, so it won't be any additional cost for us as a district.
We've communicated with a foundation, and they are very interested in helping us with that, taking care of it.
Good.
be pretty much the same agreement we have with the Barber Museum right now.
Okay, good.
So put that in place. So I think that's a great benefit for our community to have all that here. So with the board approval, we can move forward and get working on that with them.
So will you need a formal vote for us, or
No.
do we just need sort of like a?
You can officially, I mean, if you want to, but we still have to work on the agreement. I just have to get with them and let them know that the board's interested and we can move forward.
Well, I know I'm very interested in it, sounds like, and I don't know if I've heard anybody's.
I'm also interested, and I think it's a great idea.
So
would
we can
serve
work
like
something
a
for the next meeting and have an official resolution put on for the December that we went into an agreement, so, okay.
I think it'd
Well,
be
thank
good.
you very much. I think they'll be very happy that we are able to do this for them.
Excellent.
All right, I would like to recognize one of our employees tonight of the district, and that is our athletic director, Mr. Pat Durbin. He was selected as Athletic Director of the Year from the Central Ohio Basketball Officials Association, and I can tell you this award is very deserving of Mr. Durbin. He goes above and beyond taking care of the officials before and after the games. If you know Mr. Durbin, he's a very detailed person. Every aspect of the event is planned out from the time they get there till the time they leave, not just for the officials, but for everyone. And he does a great job to include them in those plans, make sure they know where they're going, takes care of them before the game with water and food for after the game. And, officials sometimes get a bad rap and not always very, happy to be there, but Mr. Durbin takes very good care of them. He's an outstanding, to me, he's one of the best ADs in Central Ohio, if not the state. He brings a different perspective to the athletic world. He holds our coaches and players to very high expectations, and he expects a lot out of them, and that shows through this acknowledgement with this award from the basketball officials, but also he's well respected by his peers in Central Ohio. So at this time, Mr. Durbin, would you come on up here? I have a little certificate for you. Mr. Durbin, and certificate of commendation presented to Pat Durbin for outstanding performance and service to the district Central Ohio Basketball Association Official Athletic Director of the Year. Presented this day, 15th of November, 2021. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. And I know you're never short for words, so.
Oh. Stand together. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for the record. Certainly, I did not expect this, but it's appreciated. And yeah, we take a lot of pride. I certainly can't take credit for all of it. We got some great faculty managers that ensure that we run to the game to the best of our ability. It always makes me feel good when the officials do say, we look forward to coming to Canal Winchester, seeing the student athletes, the community. They even will trade to come to Canal Winchester. So when they go away from there and say what a class organization, what great kids and community we have, yes, it makes me feel good as the athletic director. So thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And as most of us know, Thanksgiving is next week, and we have a nice little break for 3 days, the 24th through the 26th. This Thanksgiving season, may we all be the reason someone's day is better. Let's remember to show kindness, patience, and attitude of gratitude to all those we encounter over the next few days and weeks. As you spend time with your family and friends, I ask everyone to take a moment to reflect on all the wonderful things that you are grateful in your life. Sometimes we get caught up in the routine of everyday life, and we truly forget what is important to us, and that's family, friends, and trying to be the I in kind. We all have the power to make a positive difference to the lives of others, and I ask everyone to take advantage of that great gift. We know these are challenging times for all of us still, and there are hardships out there, but if we take the time to reflect on what's important to us in our life and try to be that person that shows kindness, compassion, and empathy towards one another, we'll make this society, this community, a better place to live in. So to everyone, happy Thanksgiving, safe travels to all, and always remember, make it a great day or not, the choice is yours. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Sotler. All right, and we're going to move on to our district reports this evening. Are there any questions this evening about our district reports? All right.
I don't have any questions, but as I was reviewing it, there were a lot of great things that stood out. So I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed looking at the photos of the students from Indian Trails that participated in the Veterans Day Parade, and those photos just made me smile. I really like the idea of the desk pets from Mrs. Hartsook in order to reward students and also to demonstrate our different elements of Portrait of the Graduate. That was a great idea. I also wanted to congratulate the 4 winners of the Voice of Democracy competition, Libby Blades, Andrew Six, Kaylin Stover, and Maggie McCarthy. Congratulations to you all. I also wanted to acknowledge our school psychologist. November 8th through the November 12th was the National School Psychology Week, so I wanted to recognize their contributions to our school team. There were just a lot of wonderful activities happening in the district, and I just wanted to formally recognize everyone for those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Talley.
We do have a lot of great things and a lot of great people here and great kids. And sometimes that gets overshadowed at times, but it truly is a great place. Thank you, Mrs. Talley, for recognizing that.
Any other comments or questions about the district reports? Excellent. So we're going to move on to our consent agenda. So I'm going to need a motion on the consent agenda this evening.
So moved.
All right. And Mrs. Hunt, if you would.
Thank you.
Before we get a second.
Sorry, I apologize.
John will second.
John will second. All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Mrs. Hunt.
Thank you very much. We'll start with number 1 in the minutes from the October 18th meeting. Number 2, certified personnel. We do have a retirement. Steve Bocock from the middle school. He will be retiring at the end of this school year, and he has been with the district for 24 years, so we just want to thank him for his service. We also have a leave of absence and several stipends. One is a replacement with somebody that resigned in the middle of the year, and the other 7 are members of our Diversity and Inclusion Committee for Equity team members. Number 3, classified personnel. Again, we have another retirement, Ruth Henwood. She's been with the district for 14 years as Indian Trail custodian. So we just want to thank her for her years of service and wish her luck in retirement. We also have a couple different resignations as well and a leave of absence. We are also asking you to approve recommendation to hire Donnell Hinton as a parapro at the high school, and she will start with us on November 29th. And we have a couple substitutes, which is great. So just to plug in again, if anybody wants to sub-bus driver or sub-custodian or sub-teach, please come see me. Moving on to number 4, mental personnel. We have a resignation for a middle school wrestling coach, and then you'll notice in the approvals to hire, we are hiring a middle school wrestling coach, as well as our weight room supervisor for winter. And then we also have volunteer coaches for swimming and wrestling. Number 5, we have an overnight field trip request for OMUN for the high school, and that will be December 5th through 7th. And number 6, we're asking you to approve the substitute employee pay rate. We did have an increase last month with the bus drivers, and we're asking you to increase the rate for custodial as well as the teacher and the nurse rates.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mrs. Hunt about the consent agenda this evening? And then Mrs. Hunt, just to be clear about the sub rates, this is going to officially make that increase for the bus driver rate, and then for some of these other ones, we are trying to give them a little bit of incentive to come into the district. So
Absolutely, yes.
okay. So I just wanted to, I know I like that email you sent out to us. It seemed like it was really well put together. So, and it sounded like we got a good response from it. But I just wanted to kind of throw that out there that we are increasing that pay rate for those individuals who are looking to come in to work in the district.
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so if there's no questions about the consent agenda, Mr. Roberts, if you call the roll.
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. And now moving on to action items. So I'm going to need a motion on our 5-year forecast.
So move.
I will second that. Okay. And Mr. Roberts.
Anything else? Would you like to see it again?
No, I'm good. I just wanted to make sure I went through and gave everybody an opportunity. So if there are no questions about the 5-year forecast, Mr. Roberts, if you would.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
And motion passes 5-0. Moving on to action item number 2, which is going to be our 2022-2023 school calendar, and this is going to be the final reading. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Mrs. Hunt.
Yeah,
Oh,
you need
I'm
a
sorry, I didn't
first
see
and a
that on
second.
there. Okay, so I need a motion on action item number 2, which is the 2022-2023 school year calendar.
So move.
Second.
Okay, just a real quick recap. The first day of school for students will be Monday, so this is for next school year, 2022-23, will be August 22nd. Of course, we'll have Labor Day off. The students will have a nice fall break or a longer one, Thursday and Friday, October 13th and 14th. We'll have November 8th off for PD Day, but for kids, we'll have that off. Then our Thanksgiving break, 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Christmas break will start the 22nd of December and go through January 3rd for students. And then we have Martin Luther King Day off for everyone, and then our students will get off the 13th and 20th for President's Day and a PD Day. March is one of those months that we have nothing going on, so there's no break there, but a lot of
It's a long
testing
month,
and
too.
preparing for tests. Yes, it is. However, we go right into spring break in April, the first week in April, and then that 10th, which is the Monday after Easter, is also a day off. And then we go last month in May, and we are out on the 26th. So no changes from what we did last time.
Okay.
And once approved, this will be on our website.
Okay. Any questions about the calendar this evening? Okay, if not, Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes. Okay. And moving on, number 8, executive session. Is there a need to enter into executive session this evening?
No, there's not a need. No.
Okay, all right. And then our closing items, are there any announcements this evening?
No more announcements.
No more announcements?
No.
Wonderful. All right, so I'm going to need a motion to adjourn this evening.
So moved.
I'll second that one. Mr. Roberts?
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mr. Metzler?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0, and we are adjourned at 8:02 p.m.
Good job today,
Everyone?
Steve.
What's that?
Good job today.